Hello, very quick here. Before we get into the show, we filmed some of these podcast episodes before we had this lovely set. And as such, you'll see some episodes that will be us on the old set, and then we'll come back to the new set and vice versa. Still the same show, just a different set.
So sit back, relax, wherever you are, and enjoy.
Alrighty. It is time for the ultimate deep cut episode. Welcome to For Your Amusement, a theme park podcast that aims to exhaustively evaluate the world's most popular theme park attractions to determine if they are world class. I'm Ryan Bergara.
And I'm Byron Marin.
And for this episode's featured attraction, we saddle up and grab our pickaxe because it's time to hitch a ride on Calico's fastest set of wheels in the West, GhostRider at Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park, California. Love this theme park. One of my all-time favorites since I was a little boy. But then again, what am I but a SoCal native? So I wonder if anybody outside of SoCal knows this park exists.
Let's help everyone else out with that. To understand GhostRider, you got to understand Knott's Berry Farm, and its history dates back to 1923, where the Knott's family, led by Walter and his wife Cordelia Knott, they built a little roadside stand to sell berries.
Hence the name Berry Farm.
Now in 1932, Walter links up with a man by the name of Rudolph Boysen. He goes on to acquire the boysenberry, which becomes a big hit. It's a massive berry.
They have a lovely boysenberry festival every year that I frequent. I eat my body weight in boysenberry treats. Also just funny that someone is allowed to be named Rudolph Boysen.
Now, the Great Depression leads to a massive price drop in land. So the Knotts, even though they're not flush with cash, they decide to double down. They buy a bunch more land. And then in 1934, Cordelia Knott has this game-changing idea. She begins to sell fried chicken dinners in her tea room. This fried chicken becomes so coveted that people show up by the hundreds, waiting hours and hours in line. And the Knotts decide, hey, you know what? We need to do something to keep these people entertained. So what do? They start building Ghost Town, which is a Western-themed development. They bring artifacts from Arizona and they make it super authentic. By the 1960s, they even build a couple rides. They build the Calico Mine ride. They build what is now called the Timber Mountain Log ride. And a friend of Walter Knott, a Walt himself by the name of Walter Elias Disney, may or may not have been inspired by a couple of these attractions, which we may cover on a later date.
Walt Disney was there opening day of Knott's Berry Farm, saw all the rides, thought to himself, that looks like something I could do maybe. Two great Walts just hanging out.
Through the 1960s, they start building rides. By the 1970s, they start introducing roller coasters, one of which is called Corkscrew, no longer exists there, but at the time was the first inverting coaster.
You mean to tell me that the same guy who gave us the Boysenberry and Knott's Scary Farm and Halloween attractions as we know them today is the same guy who gave us going loop-de-loop on a roller coaster?
It appears so.
This guy's a goddamn legend.
That being said, we fast forward to the 90s. There's larger companies now at this point that are funding all these amusement parks and theme parks around the world. Of course, you got Disneyland right down the road. The Knott family decides, hey, we can't keep up with all this funding. We need to sell this to a larger company who could continue to keep this beautiful park alive, keep it growing, keep it competing with these larger parks. As a matter of fact, they even consider selling Knott's Berry Farm in the 90s to Disney back when Michael Eisner was looking for places to build the concept of Disney's America.
I had heard rumors that Knott's was a possible third gate for Disney. I mean, they share a lot of the same DNA, I would say, in terms of their commitment to storytelling, particularly Ghost Town. Ghost Town, I don't want to just gloss over. That place fucking rules. It's amazing. Very well thought out. Legitimately looks like an old Western town that you would see back in like the old Wild Wild West.
And it holds such a high value to the Knotts family that they decide Disney would most likely make a bunch of changes.
They probably would.
They choose to sell Knott's Berry Farm to Cedar Fair under the agreement that Cedar Fair will preserve Ghost Town specifically. This purchase goes down in 1997, but not before development begins on the last ride the Knotts family would ever be involved in creating. And that is the attraction we're covering today, GhostRider. Cedar Fair notices that this project's in development and they want to shoot it down. At the time, Cedar Fair was obsessed with making hypercoasters. In the height of what became known as the Coaster Wars, a wooden roller coaster at 118 feet tall didn't seem like as big of a draw to them.
By the way, what is a hypercoaster, just for the folks out there?
A hypercoaster is actually coined by Cedar Fair when they first built Magnum XL 200 at Cedar Point.
I'm guessing that's not the same company that makes Magnum Trojan condoms?
Nah, not quite. Although they are all about size. That was their big selling point.
Fair enough.
That opens in the late 80s. When that opens, it's the first coaster to stand at 200 feet tall.
Gotcha.
And they coin it the term hypercoaster.
And Knott's to this day still does want a hypercoaster. And Knott's being Cedar
At the
Fair.
very least. There's even been rumors of them coveting a Giga coaster, which Cedar Fair also coined with Millennium Force in 2000. That is a 300-foot tall roller coaster.
This seems like a good time to jump in and just let the folks know credentials of Byron. You all know me, I'm just a theme park weirdo. Byron, however, is a true sicko. He is more obsessed with roller coasters than anybody I've ever met. He, in fact, counts a ride on a roller coaster as a credit. And how many credits are you at now?
I'm at a humble total of 139. You know, if you're calling me a sicko, there are sickos out there that have been on 500 plus roller coasters.
Well, you know, you're all sickos, but I mean, you're just maybe a lesser sicko.
I'm just trying to catch up.
Byron has mentioned terminology to me that my eyes, even as a theme park goer myself, start to glaze over. But I'm always thrilled by it, and I knew covering GhostRider, we'd be talking about a lot of cool things like G's.
Lateral G's.
Airtime.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that.
Construction, track layout, the stuff that the people at home want to hear about. And you know what? If you're listening to this podcast, I bet you do want to hear about it because you're also a fellow sicko.
They go ahead with the construction on GhostRider reluctantly. There's so much that was put into the development cost and buildings were already getting moved around that it would have been too big of a loss for Cedar Fair. They were in too deep by the time they made the purchase. GhostRider goes ahead with its construction.
I had no idea that there was kind of a battle between Cedar Fair and the Knott family to keep GhostRider alive. I did know that this was the last ride that the Knott family had their hands in creatively. And it's funny to me that the only reason why it stayed was because it was purely a financial decision. For once, we owe a great thank you to all the pencil pushers that are looking at spreadsheets for making a cold, hard financial decision to keep what I believe now is one of the greatest wooden roller coasters in the world.
May not be a hyper coaster, but a wooden roller coaster in Southern California, a very rare thing. Due to the frequent earthquakes in California, wooden coasters require by state code a lot more structure, which means a lot more money, and they're harder to maintain.
Yes.
Not many wooden coasters in Southern California. The tallest and fastest before GhostRider is Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain. The designer decided to make the GhostRider lift hill just a few feet taller to make sure it stood at 118 feet, beating the 112 feet. The designer that did GhostRider is the same designer that worked on Colossus.
Robin Hall, by the way, that guy's name, that designer.
Appreciate the plug. I did not know his name.
That's because it's in my fun facts. That's just a little insight into how we make this podcast. Byron and I will each lock ourselves into a separate room, very much like an isolation chamber or solitary confinement, and we will not emerge until we each come out with a fully researched fact sheet for the show. And if we have some crossover, that's just how the game is, baby.
GhostRider opens in 1998.
Do you believe in ghosts?
A few months ahead of schedule, as a matter of fact.
Get ready for the longest, wildest wooden coaster in the West. GhostRider, you will believe. Only at Knott's.
I've never heard of a ride opening 6 months ahead of schedule, by the way. When I read that actually worried me. And I was like, I can't believe this thing didn't just fall apart.
Well, it almost does. Not literally, but in its first few years, it's running great. However, it gets very rough by the early 2000s, and it kind of skirts along all the way until 2015, where it becomes nearly unrideable. And Cedar Fair says, enough is enough. We're going to retrack the whole thing. And it opens 10 months later with a brand new track manufactured by Great Coasters International, and to this day has been running like a dream. It's been very well maintained ever since and remains, I would say, the most popular, but due to its awful capacity, I don't know if that many riders actually get on it.
That is true.
Every day.
The previous manufacturer was not Great Coasters International, though, right?
No, very close, though. It was called Custom Coasters International. They built a lot of wooden coasters during the 90s.
Not a lot of ingenuity, I suppose, in the nomenclature world of the roller coaster companies.
You know, to their credit, and even though the track was redone in 2015, the layout remained the same. Custom Coasters International was very well known for creating great wooden coaster layouts. However, they also gained a reputation, GhostRider being an incredible example, of overselling and under-delivering in regards to keeping their attractions reliable and building them for longevity. So they would usually win bids by these amusement park enterprises by giving, a rather low budget. And in order to meet that promised budget, they would start cutting some corners.
This was a jerker back in the day. Jerked you around.
Yeah, if you're the type that likes it rough, early 2000s GhostRider.
That's where you want to be. Hop in that time machine. Don't try and kill Hitler. Go back and ride GhostRider before it was retracked, because this bad boy just beat the shit out of you. Just really tossed you around.
Speaking of which, I was going to maybe say of another fun random fact, but I think I'm going to withhold because I think it's coming down the pipe.
It might.
That being said, let's move it over to you. Let's hear about some fun facts.
But before we do that, let's have I just whacked the fuck out of this mic. Did you know that your temperature at night can have one of the greatest impacts on your sleep quality? If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Inspired by NASA, Miracle Made uses silver-infused fabrics and makes temperature-regulating bedding so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. The infused silver also prevents up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. No more gross odors. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Miracle sheets are the perfect gift for your spouse, friends, or family. Who doesn't want better sleep and luxurious feeling bed sheets? And since these come with 3 free towels, you get 2 gifts in one, just in time for the holidays. So, stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Go to trymiracle.com/FYA to try it today or gift it to someone special this holiday season. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Save over 40%. And if you use our promo FYA at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/FYA and use the code FYA to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/FYA to treat yourself, a friend, or loved one this holiday season. Back to the show. With that, we'll go into some fun facts here. This ride, and this is very abnormal for a roller coaster, is 2 minutes and 40 seconds long. That's a goddamn eternity for a roller coaster, especially a roller coaster that's as intense as GhostRider. It is literally all gas, no brakes. And the fact that it is still 2 minutes and 40 seconds and fucking clipping, by the way, it's not slow, is a testament to how bananas and relentless this ride is.
Do you know, by the way, that prior to the retrack, it did have a mid-course brake run?
The ride originally did have a mid-course brake run, and now they took that thing out. It basically just clips around like a straight portion of a track, a little turn on the ride, and then it kicks into the second half of the ride, which we'll get into later.
For those of you who have a life, I suppose, the purpose of a mid-course brake run is to ensure that the block section ahead is clear.
Yeah.
So if there's ever a time that a train stalls up ahead, the sensors will detect that and it'll stop the train coming. This is just a safety precaution to avoid collisions.
Is it therefore not as safe because the mid-course brake run is out?
They took the mid-course brake run out.
Oh, yes. Okay, I know the answer
because
to this.
they realized that the operations are so slow, so painfully slow on this attraction that they can only run 2 trains.
Yeah, and now they basically won't run one train without the other train basically coming into the station, which means that the mid-course brake run is no longer necessary because they don't need to know where the other train is because they're not starting the next train until the prior train comes into the station. And apologies up front here. As you may have already noticed, this one's going to get pretty fucking nerdy, guys. We're really going to get in the weeds here. And maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you'll pass out. Hopefully you're not listening to this while driving. Or you're digging it. We'll see. Continuing on here, though. 2 minutes and 40 seconds long with over 4,500 feet of wooden track. Heights that reach 118 feet. Speeds that reach 56 miles per hour. G's that reach 3.14. And there's also a 108-foot drop. This ride was initially constructed with over 2.5 million board feet, which is basically like a 1 by 1 foot piece of wood. I don't know if that was the exact measurements for this one, but 2.5 million board feet of southern yellow pine wood from North Carolina and Alabama, and also 50,000 pounds of nails and 230 tons of steel. And I believe they actually added more wood.
Higher quality lumber as well.
I think it's called eBay wood or something like that.
Yeah, you got it. You nailed it.
That was off the top of the dome right there. That's what you call research.
Yeah, I was going to go, I'm like, what's the name of that? That is
I think
the name
it's called
of that wood.
eBay wood. I don't know what the characteristics are of that because I'm not a woodman, but I will say that it did make this baby smooth as butter. This ride, as Byron mentioned, did finish 6 months ahead of schedule. When it opened, it was the most expensive investment Knott had made to that point at $24 million. This is not an enormous theme park. It is not a Disneyland, if you will, or a Universal Studios Hollywood. It's much more an elevated family-run theme park. So $24 million, that's a lot of dough. That's a lot of dough for this family.
And most of that money was not even on the coaster itself. It was moving everything around to allow the coaster to be
That makes
built.
sense. This ride actually does stretch out over the parking lot, or what used to be a parking lot. And it makes for a great walk into the park if you park in a certain parking lot outside of Knott's. Even Robin Hall, the guy we talked about earlier, who I believe at the time was, I think he was the executive of maintenance and construction at Knott's at the time. But he had mentioned that he wanted the ride to serve as a billboard on Beach Boulevard, which is where Knott's is located, just for people driving by to see hey, look at that.
I'll tell you what, it works.
It does.
I mean, there's no doubt. It gets the hype going.
Oh, it does.
Even to this day, every time I go.
You hear people screaming for their lives. If you open your windows driving past this thing, as I do, because it's bananas. This was, as Byron also said, the last ride created by the Knotts family before Knott's Berry Farm was acquired by Cedar Fair in 1997. The ride trains are either gold, silver, or copper to reflect different precious mining metals. I did not know that little bit of theming. Very good train design on these too.
By the way, when they did the retracking, they also changed the trains.
Yeah, they're from Millennium now, right?
Millennium Flyers. Yeah, they used to be PTC, stands for Philadelphia Toboggan Company. You could go down that rabbit hole elsewhere, but Millennium.
Clearly, you have. And
Millennium Flyer trains,
a madman
running like a dream. Yeah.
There are 5 mechanics that maintain the ride and completely reconstruct each of the trains every year. Though, I will admit that fact is from Wikipedia, so don't quote me on that, but according to Wikipedia, that happens and would be a testament to why this ride still to this day runs like a beauty. GhostRider is the longest, tallest, and fastest wooden roller coaster on the entire West Coast. However, we mentioned it earlier, I do see that the wooden roller coaster Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain in California also apparently goes 62 miles per hour, which is 6 miles per hour faster than GhostRider. I looked that up. It seems to be true, which is weird that Knott's is saying that this is the fastest wooden roller coaster on the West Coast. To be honest, I don't even care.
Here's the deal, though. GhostRider played the long game because Twisted Colossus is now a hybrid coaster. It got the Iron Horse treatment, I believe, around 2013. Not exact.
Which means it's a hybrid of metal and wood.
Yeah, Rocky Mountain Construction, they're a company notorious for putting steel track on top of wooden foundations to basically save and honestly greatly improve wooden coasters. Converted Colossus into Twisted Colossus. Honestly, another one of my personal favorites.
Yeah, I don't think it's anywhere close to GhostRider, though.
That being said, GhostRider definitely stands alone now as the tallest and fastest wooden coaster.
There it is. Maybe that's why they could
played
make
the long
claim.
game,
They
baby.
could make the claim. Colossus realized it was beat in terms of being a wooden roller coaster in California, and they were like, we'll make ourselves a hybrid now. We're going to make ourselves a little robot. Also, this is another fun thing about the Knott's and Six Flags Magic Mountain rivalry, if you will. According to the Daily Pilot, Knott's officials wanted the ride to be taller than its wooden counterpart down the freeway at Six Flags Magic Mountain. You had mentioned this before. So they revised the height from 112 feet to 118 feet. I just love the pettiness here. I love the idea that, a theme park will not pretend that they are the only theme park in the world. They're going to be like, yeah, we know you have this wooden roller coaster. Ours is going to be 6 feet taller, though. Just so we could say we're the tallest.
Many's of records have been broken by 1 foot.
Exactly. I just love the idea that the theme park industry is super petty and hyper aware of their competitors.
Well, because any opportunity they can to market a coaster off some record, they're going to do it. And Cedar Fair is notorious for this. Same with Six Flags.
And Six Flags Magic Mountain also very, very big on breaking records and holding records. I think they actually have the most roller coasters in a theme park in the world.
Magic Mountain holds the record for most coasters currently at 20.
But they don't have this one. They don't have GhostRider.
Although they got to watch their backs because Energylandia in Poland is catching up real quick.
I'd say this, though, and this might be a hyperbole or a hot take. I don't even care. I would trade 5 coasters at Six Flags if they could just inherit GhostRider. I think that's how good this ride is. Quality over quantity. No disrespect or shade to Six Flags. It's just they don't have GhostRider, and GhostRider's my favorite. UltimateRollerCoaster.com says the backstory for this ride. By the way, I did not know this ride had a backstory because it's not mentioned in the queue, not even really hinted at.
It was almost mentioned in the queue. Have you ever heard about this?
I have not heard about this, but let's hear the backstory first. Here's the backstory, according to UltimateRollerCoaster.com. This ride's about a Union soldier who ventured west during the Civil War, seeking gold, but was never seen again after he rode his horse into Calico Mine alone at night. Locals claim to see him riding his horse in the sky at night as well. A GhostRider, if you will. And you had mentioned that this almost did sneak its way into the queue.
During the development stages of this attraction, back when the Knotts were in charge, there was a pre-show planned for GhostRider. However, when Cedar Fair came in, they said, yeah, sure, you could keep GhostRider, but we're getting rid of that pre-show. We're going to save a few bucks.
Hey, show us the pre-show, Cedar Fair. I want to see the pre-show. The line's long enough. The least you can do, go to Best Buy and grab yourself a couple flat screens. Toss that baby on.
Or,
release the Snyder Cut.
Is it like
release
a full,
it. Show it to me.
Was it a full room? Was it just, something that comes up on a monitor? I'm so curious now.
Maybe it would be like a live action thing because Knott's is very big into live action entertainment. They do it honestly just as good as anybody I've ever seen, and that includes the big dogs. I could see them having some sort of like performers in GhostRider. In fact, on one of my favorite rides at Knott's, there's a train, just like a typical choo-choo train in the park, and they actually do have performers come and hijack the train.
All right, let's get those hands up in the air, everybody. Hands up. Get them up, get them. Now listen here. Me and my new partner are going to be robbing you today. And do not give him a hard time because he's from Canada.
Amazing. I'm sure they would have done something similar to that on GhostRider. I'm saying that without knowing, but let's move into the current reputation of this ride right now. How popular is it? What are the average wait times for this bad boy? Where does it fit in the landscape of theme parks as we know it? And how do people generally feel about this ride?
To this day, it seems like it's just universally praised.
It's a crowd pleaser. People love this ride.
Yeah, it's currently just as popular as ever. The average wait time is 83 minutes. That's its all-time average.
Really? That seems low.
ThrillData.com is an average of 83 minutes. If you go on a weekday in like January or February,
yeah, because every time I see it, it's a hulking long line. What's the highest wait time on record for this ride?
Okay, so the longest recorded wait time. Would you like to take a wild guess?
I'm going to guess 300 minutes.
Not a bad guess. It's actually less.
That's surprising. That's very surprising.
Because it is so commonly a 2-hour wait.
Yes.
Its longest recorded wait time is 240 minutes.
Now that seems more par for the course. And I will say, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that 83 minutes is an average and it's pulled down by the down days. But on most days that any normal person would go to this theme park, you're looking at a 2-hour wait at least. Is that fair to say? I think that's fair to say.
It's usually a 2-hour wait. And
I know that's anecdotal, but it's...
because it just runs like molasses in regards to loading passengers.
It really does.
It doesn't help that the attraction is located at the very front of the park, so it's the first ride everyone goes to, so it immediately gets jam-packed, and then with its slow operations, there's no going back. It just keeps getting longer and longer.
Now, we keep mentioning that, slow operations. Explain that a little bit for the folks.
To put rider capacity simply, it's just how many riders you get on an hourly basis.
So how many riders you could load into a train per hour, essentially.
Yeah, and we don't have the specific number on this one.
1,600 is what they claim.
They claim 16.
And I say
that is
bullshit.
No. I'd be surprised if on most days they get to 500, honestly.
I did find a revised number. Do you want to guess what it is?
600?
450.
Oh, so yeah, under the 500.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I think they're 24 seats a train?
Yes,
think they
24,
have 12
24
rows,
seats.
so 24 seats a train. Each train takes about 3 to 4 minutes on average when I go there to dispatch.
That's because they do this thing at Knott's where you have to climb over the train, put your belongings in a little locker, and then get back in the car, then do the seatbelt check. It's a process.
On top of it, they also check for seatbelt and lap bar.
Look, I'm happy that lap bar is there. This ride's insane, because if that lap bar wasn't there, I'd be screaming even louder. I fear people would die.
There's also no unload station, so you have to basically wait for everyone to get out.
That's right.
From the previous ride. They have to get out. They have to go to the cubbies to collect their stuff. By the way, this is why whenever you get upset about having to put your stuff in a locker for a roller coaster at Universal, it's to help you get on the ride way faster.
Yeah, because they have the lockers up front.
It really helps with operations. And I honestly think that Cedar Fair should maybe listen to this podcast and take notes and maybe invest in a locker system to get more people on this attraction.
You actually said, hey, Cedar Fair, take notes. Listen to For Your Amusement.
Oh.
We do want them to listen to this podcast just so that they put a locker system at the top of the line so that we don't have to wait for it when we're loading into the train. It would make this line go so much faster. And that already coupled with the fact, like we were mentioning earlier, there is no brake section in this ride. So they have to wait until the previous train basically arrives at the station before they can launch the next train. All this together means this is going to be a long line no matter what. And if you're going during the Boysenberry Festival, or God forbid, you're going through Knott's Scary Farm, you really want to hit this ride right away, preferably at rope drop. You want to rope drop GhostRider. Consider this your one and only warning. Do get on this ride right away. It gets ugly. It gets ugly fast.
Which is kind of sad because night rides on this
kick ass.
They takes it to a next level, and roller coasters naturally get faster as the wheels heat up while they run through the day.
I did not know that until I met Byron. I always just thought roller coasters feel faster at night because it's nighttime, you're a little more excited, there's a lighting package, but apparently the physics of it does hold true. The wheels heat up, the track heats up.
It has to do with the grease or the lubricant that they have on the wheels.
Yeah.
And as that gets warmed up, throughout the day, it'll start running faster.
That's incredible.
And back to rope drop, if you don't rope drop, like I've missed the rope drop by like 5 minutes, too late. It's an hour and a half.
Damn.
You got to get there before the park opens.
There is no margin for error. If you really want to
get a jump on it, or wait for a day that the park is open till pretty late. A lot of the guests will kind of get tuckered out. You'll still wait an hour, but at least you'll get that sweet night ride and it won't be 3 hours.
If you ride this ride when the park is closing, it's a recipe for success as well. If you're not an early riser like myself, I hate the morning. I wish I didn't, though. It would make me, get a lot of things done in my career. But instead, I'm doing this podcast. Let's move on to first impressions. Let's recount our first time on the ride, if we can. What is the initial effect it had on our psyche? Look, I've loved this ride since the first time I got on it. I think I got on this, it must have been right when it opened, actually, in 98. So I either got on this ride or 3rd or 4th grade. I can't recall, but in my elementary school, they did this thing, and most SoCal kids will relate to this, which is why most SoCal kids love Knott's Berry Farm. Schools around the area in any, really like a big radius from SoCal, like a 50-mile radius from Knott's Berry Farm. Every elementary school would bring all of their students to Knott's Berry Farm to literally study the historical nature of the park. Ghost Town is so well built and so accurately built to that time that schools will bring students over so that they could study it. They could look at the log ride where they study how people mined. Of course, the mine train ride where they actually go into the mines themselves and have some incredible animatronics. We'll probably cover that ride at some point on this podcast. And then they actually have a panning for gold segment that is actually in the GhostRider line. You have to get out, but it's accessible if you want to. The first time I got on this ride, it was on one of those field trips, and it just melted my brain because to that point, I had really only been on Disney roller coasters. No disrespect to Disney. They do not do coasters like Knott's Berry Farm does coasters. Knott's Berry Farm is like a hybrid between a Disney storytelling themed centric park with a Magic Mountain, like a Six Flags, that is basically like, we're going to be here to kick your ass on some amazing roller coasters. And Knott's kind of fused the two of those together, and GhostRider is the best example of that. It's in a historical setting in Ghost Town. It's fit within the theme, and this roller coaster is wild. I just remember being kind of almost dizzy by how much this ride just shakes you, because it's relentless. It's a relentless ride, and I just was in love with it. From that moment on, I knew that this might be my favorite roller coaster in the world. And to this day, you take the 8-year-old Ryan, and now I'm 32-year-old Ryan. Not much has changed. I think this is my favorite roller coaster in the world, maybe edged out by Velocicoaster over in Universal Studios Islands of Adventure in Orlando. But
it's funny that you bring up the third grade trip, because I went on a third grade trip to Knott's, and we didn't get to go on any rides.
That sucks.
As a matter of fact, the tour guide made a little quirk about it at the end of the tour. He's like, sorry you didn't get to go on any of the rides. Anyways.
I believe you mean quip, not quirp. I don't know what a quirp is. Quirp sounds like...
Words are hard for me.
That sounds like a fart that got away.
I would have to wait until my 9th birthday to finally experience GhostRider for the first time. But...
Were you like really upset about that? Was like 8-year-old Byron like knocking over trash cans? Like, oh, this is bullshit. I want to get a GhostRider.
Mixed feelings, because although I nerded out a bit about roller coasters, even back when I was 8 years old, I was kind of a wimp.
Oh, you were a late bloomer when it came to thrill rides.
I was very nervous. Yeah, like there's a lot of trepidation that went into every new roller coaster I went into.
There's footage of me as a child crying at like 3-4 years old because I couldn't get on roller coasters because I wanted so badly to get on them.
I was a bit nervous. I'm not going to lie. I was more excited to ride Jaguar. And if you know what Jaguar is,
it's a fine ride.
It's more just kind of like a scenic
good starter coaster for kids. It's like the starter pack coaster for a kid. That and Gadget's Go Coaster in Toontown at Disneyland. You 2-time those. You work your way up.
However, nighttime rolls around on my 9th birthday. My parents and, of course, through peer pressure, I found myself in the line for GhostRider.
How nervous were you?
It was upsettingly long, so given the nerves I had, it felt like I was there for like 2 hours waiting to get on this thing.
To be fair, too, very understandable that a child would be, scared to get on this ride. It's a hulking, just monster of a ride. Like, it is huge. When you get there, it's hard to communicate the scale of this wooden roller coaster, but it's large.
By far the biggest roller coaster I had gone on at that age.
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
The first wooden coaster I had been on at the age.
2 for
so that
1.
was a whole new sensation. And the memory of actually being on the ride, apart from the first drop, in that hard left turn that you take at the bottom of that first drop, where you really start to feel the difference of what a wooden roller coaster can bring. I just remember hitting the brake run and just feeling exhausted, mesmerized.
Imagining 8-year-old Byron or 9-year-old Byron be like, this is exhausting. It's like really funny.
Like I just didn't know. I didn't know what hit me.
I do remember a lot of my classmates crying getting off this ride.
It was by far the most intense roller coaster I had been on at the time.
Let's move into the good and the bad. What are the good and bad things about the ride? We'll start with the good. I have a bunch of things written down here. First one, really cool queue entrance. Some great rock work and a style that blends seamlessly into Ghost Town. You're basically entering like a mine shaft. Very well done. The atmosphere that surrounds this ride is Ghost Town. So you're already in elite theme park atmosphere. In fact, I'd argue that Ghost Town at Knott's Berry Farm may be one of the greatest themed lands I've ever entered in a theme park. And that still holds true to this day because it's very consistent to what it's selling. An old West, West. It's basically like Westworld almost. It's great.
They brought real Western artifacts.
And it shows, and it feels that way. And they have street performers, and there's music. That's the environment you're walking into. Like Byron said, it's at the front of the park. You see this mine shaft with a beautiful logo. You cross under that, you go into this mine shaft. You have some fun, like, windy sound design in this mine shaft. It's good. And then panning for gold in the queue. There's panning for gold in the queue. This is where most school kids are in this park. They are actually, there's like a little kind of like, I want to describe it as like a pig trough. And there's water and there's sand, and they give you each a pan, and you can pan for gold. It's very, very satisfying. I did it very recently for a special we did on Watcher, not on my own accord, because I'm a 32-year-old man and I wouldn't want to pan for gold by my lonesome. I'd probably be on some lists.
I didn't know it was actually connected to the line itself.
I believe you can actually pop out of the line and go into it. Based on the last time I was there, maybe I just saw it that way, but I also did look at a Q POV video, and it did look like you could step aside, pan for gold, get back in line. You are going to lose your place, though. There is at least some attempt at theming for a roller coaster here, which I think is very rare, especially for a park that's a more, a family-run theme park. That's what Knott's kind of feels like. And I think the theming here is very solid. The wood fits in with the look of what, I suppose like a mine train would look like. The theming of the building is a mining company theme, which is fun. And then, like I said, you do enter through a mine shaft. So there is an attempt here, and it is felt. It's appreciated. This could be a bad, but I'm going to list it in the good. There's a goofy ass safety video that plays before you get on the trains here. It's like right in the next to the load station. And the acting in that safety video is some classic silent film era acting. They're really going for it, and I enjoy it quite a bit. It's very 90s.
Yeah, they have not updated this video.
No, right? This looks like
it looks analog.
Yeah, it looks like it still should be played in a VCR. And I kind of appreciate that. In a weird way, they played the long game here, like you were saying earlier. Right now, we're in an era where in TikTok, there's like a VCR filter to make things look like they're from the 90s. This accomplishes that because it is from the 90s, and they just didn't update it.
We ask that you remain seated with your hands, arms, and legs inside the car at all times.
Let's get into the ride. I love that this ride just immediately punches you in the face as soon as the ride starts. The train lets go, it dispatches from the station, and it immediately gets going. You bank around this little hill, and then there's like a curve that you actually get some lateral G-forces on, which is very funny. It kind of is like a signal of things to come on this ride. I think within the first 5 to 10 seconds, you're getting some stuff already, and then you go to that first lift hill.
It's an excellent tease. Because that's when you get the first feeling of what a wood track is like.
Yes.
And immediately, I remember the first time I went on it, just that little tease turnaround before the lift hill made me think, oh my God, if that feels the way it did, with a 10-foot drop,
yeah,
what is this going to feel like going down an 108-foot drop?
I thought the same thing as well. I was like, and even in the time between rides, sometimes I've got on this ride maybe once every 6 months. I always go, all right, here we go. This is that wooden feel, and we're in for it now. Then you go up the lift hill. I mean, this lift hill does feel very substantial. I know 108 feet is not that big of a drop, but it does feel somewhat substantial on this ride. It's only at a 50-degree angle, but it is covered, which is a fun thing. There's a cover on the drop, and that's basically just to block sound, very much like Incredicoaster at Disney's California Adventure. This drop, honestly, not that spectacular. You don't really get a lot of airtime unless you're in the back row. But, like Byron mentioned earlier, it immediately banks left after you drop, which is just fun. It's a fun thing to do.
Did you know, by the way, that first drop wasn't always covered?
Yeah, I knew that. I don't know when they added the cover.
It was a few years in.
Probably got noise complaints from neighbors. And then after the drop, you go into what many people have described, and I described this as this way as well, and I'm not even a coaster head. One of the crazier airtime hills I've been on. That first airtime hill that it shoots you over, you're probably in the air for, I think, at least a couple seconds, right?
Your butt elevates for a couple seconds. It also depends on what row you're in. I've actually found this I'm usually a back row rider. It depends on the coaster. I usually prefer back row on GhostRider. However, there are certain moments, this elongated floater airtime hill being one of them, where I actually prefer the front row. I think you get a little extra pop and your butt stays off the chair a little bit longer.
At airtime, that basically is what it kind of sounds like. It's how much time you spend in the air like your actual ass elevating off the seat.
It's the experience of negative G's.
And most experienced coaster riders, which is a funny thing to say, but it's true, most people who are very big fans of coasters will make sure their restraint is a little loose, just so that they could experience the airtime. Because if you really crank it down all the way onto your thighs, you're not going to get that airtime. You'll get the sensation, but you won't actually float.
The slang for that is getting stapled. I don't know if you've ever heard that before.
No, I haven't, but I'm going to start using that.
A lot of coaster YouTubers use
That's
that
incredible.
term. The ride operator, when they come to check, they notice it's a little too loose, and they staple you.
Oh, man. I love GhostRider. Got stapled, though. Sucked. What I do, since I've known Byron, is because now I also like my restraint a little loose, I will give the illusion that I have much thicker thighs than I have, and I'll actually push up my thighs by basically sitting down on and using my tippy toes to make my thighs come off the seat a little bit. And then when they do the restraint, they're pushing against skin, so they're like, that guy's secure. And here's the thing, I'm not. I drop my feet down, and now you can see this in the video podcast. I'm demonstrating. Now my feet are down, restraints here,
frame there, yeah.
and I'm ready. I'm ready to party. Another moment here. I'm just going to highlight moments of this ride. It's weird that this roller coaster is so goddamn good in its layout that I can actually isolate moments in the layout itself that really thrill me. I already mentioned this before. All gas, no brakes. There is no mid-course brake section for this ride. I will say, even still, that little mid-section where there used to be the brakes, it's the most leisurely part of the ride, and frankly, you kind of need it. You get a nice view of Knott's Berry Farm when this part happens, because you're kind of just going around a turn. And then from there, it goes into another drop, which this drop must be what?
Oh, the one off the mid-course?
Is it more than 10 feet?
It's probably almost 50 feet at least. It's like half the height of the first drop.
Folks, the second half of this ride is it's a straight drop into hell. The airtime on that drop after the mid-course brake section, where it used to be, is insane. I really don't know how to describe it other than the fact that it feels as if you are actually going to get whipped off the ride.
This is really the moment where you want that back row.
Exactly.
Because the weight of the whole train going down that drop, it just whips you. What feels like straight down your ass just flies out of the... And by the way, there's different types of airtime.
Yeah.
Whereas the first big hill that you talked about after the first drop would be considered a floater airtime hill, where it's elongated. You're kind of gracefully floating off your chair. This drop off the mid-course is considered an ejector airtime moment, where it's just a rapid, oh shit, pop out of the chair. And then it doesn't hold back.
The best way I could describe it is, you often see this in a film where someone will be in a canoe and they're approaching slowly a waterfall that then falls. This would be like, if instead of if it wasn't a canoe, it would be a whitewater rapid where you're going top speed and then you fly over the waterfall. The distance you would fly horizontally is negated by the fact that you're nailed to the track. So it really does feel like you're going to fly off this ride.
And when you're in that back row, you just see car after car just boop, boop,
yeah.
And then before you
like an evil caterpillar. It's like an evil caterpillar. The second half of this ride is relentless. It doesn't stop. You go through the wooden structure of the ride, the bowels. You're just getting hit by hand chopper after hand chopper. Hand chopper being their supports of the ride that make it feel like your hand's going to literally get hit by them. It's not, but it does make it feel like you're going crazy fast. I often have the thought on this ride in the second half where I wonder, is this ever going to end? Because it's so intense. And they also do this thing on this ride with these turns where they will have airtime mixed with a turn while you're getting the airtime. And then as you're kind of coming down back into your seat, it goes immediately into a turn. So you're just like getting whipped around like a Woody doll on this bad boy.
And it also helps that GhostRider, unlike most traditional coasters, does an incredible job with unbanked turns.
What do you mean by that?
So when you bank a turn, think about, kind of making a coaster track tilt sideways.
Gotcha.
Like you're swooping into the turn.
Yeah.
You're banking that turn so that the track and supports can better handle the force exerted by the train.
Yeah.
And also it's more comfortable for a rider. I don't know if you've ever been like on a Wild Mouse style roller coaster. Let's say like Goofy Sky School for more generic purposes at California Adventure, those are unbanked turns, that you keep going back and forth on.
Yeah.
Great for lateral Gs. That's why they only go a certain amount of speed usually.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, this is a very deep cut 1998 rocket rods.
Nice.
What killed that attraction and the foundation for what was the people mover was the fact that they didn't bank the turns, which was why they kept slow. Like every time it would zoom up, you get excited, and then they'd slow it down
on the turn. So
every time it hit the turn, so it'd kill the pacing of the ride. Still wasn't enough. Destroyed the foundation. That's why it's still sitting there today, because they'd have to basically gut it out of Tomorrowland.
Yeah, the rotting carcass of Rocket Rod still sits above Tomorrowland in Disneyland. It's very funny.
Unbanking a turn can be risky. GhostRider crushes it. They just found the best way to supply just enough banking to keep it foundationally sound and have enough support to work that. However, they give you that unbanked sensation of basically just feeling like your oblique is going to get cut in half across all of these turns while simultaneously providing airtime pops.
It's relentless. It really, getting your oblique cut in half is a perfect way to describe it.
It's in the best way. It's so damn fun.
And it's somehow an intense roller coaster, yet highly accessible to everybody. I've seen older folks get on this ride and children, and they're fine. They're loving it, despite what it's putting your body through. Because on every one of these turns, the lateral Gs that you're getting feel insane. There's a helix structure in this ride, which is like a 360 turn. I don't know how many times you're actually spinning. I think it's a right turn, and you just keep turning over and over, just doing a giant circle as you go down and down. And that helix lasts literally 10 seconds. You know how fucking insane it is to be cycling and doing a turn over and over, just doing donuts for 10 seconds?
This helix feels like it's 60 miles an hour, but by this point of the ride, the coaster has lost so much steam.
That's crazy to me.
However, the combination of packing your elements tighter as the coaster progresses makes it feel like it's as, if not faster, than when the ride started. And on top of it, they unbanked the helix. It's an unbanked helix.
That's crazy, dude.
So it's just pinning you to the side of your seat the whole time while still giving you little airtime pops, because it's not just a standard helix by itself. They throw little dips.
There's plenty of ride-through videos of this ride with me on it. And every time we get to this portion, you hear me, maybe we'll put the audio here, but you hear me just getting pressed to the side of the seat so hard and just going, ah, ah, ah. It just doesn't feel like it's going to end. The second half of this ride feels like forever. This ride feels like forever. It's 2 minutes and 40 seconds long of a very intense wooden roller coaster. Every time we exit the helix and we get to that final break section and we see the load station, there's relief in me, but there's also just like, that was a goddamn blast. And you're just out of breath. You're just literally out of breath.
And if the line wasn't as brutal as it usually is, you'd be hopping on again.
No, a majority of the time.
You immediately want to get on again.
No, and a majority of the time when you get off this ride, people will organically start clapping.
And these are people that are waiting hours.
Exactly, and they're thrilled. I think that's also another thing is at the load station, you could see the other train coming in, and you just see the looks on everyone's faces. First off, if anybody has longer hair, it's just standing up.
It will frizz the fuck out.
Yeah, mine too.
When I go on GhostRider, and I'll wear a beanie during the winter. And one of the last times we went, my beanie flew off and I had to catch it in midair.
Oh, I remember that.
Flying off my head.
My headband almost flew off because, like Byron, I have longer hair that gets super frizzy, and I end up looking like Doc Brown after I get off this ride, and it's just not a good look. Last thing I have here, night rides in this thing, borderline orgasmic. They got chaser lights on this bad boy that just make it look incredible.
Right?
I would highly recommend riding this at Knott's Scary Farm just because the atmosphere is so insane. It's a ghost-themed roller coaster, and you're riding it at night, and below you just see the streets covered in fog. Doesn't get much better than that. Do you have anything else to add in the good before we get to the bad here?
I'll just emphasize how much I appreciate the aesthetic of GhostRider and how well it fits into Ghost Town.
Yeah.
Considering it was built in 1998, but it feels like it could have been there the whole time.
Yeah.
When they decided to retract this coaster, there was an opportunity for them to go the Iron Horse treatment and make it a hybrid coaster.
And they didn't.
And they chose to keep it the classic wood, just like in the late 90s. they chose to stick with doing the classic wood coaster as opposed to doing something, maybe a little more marketable at the time, like a hyper coaster. So sticking to what is truly Knott's is what they really did with GhostRider. And I think that's why it just remains a headliner at this park.
And for that, we thank them. Let's move into the bad here. And look, not a lot of bad about this ride. So I'm really nitpicking here. But, we mentioned it. Brutal queue. There's some outdoor portions here that are just a straightaway, and you're just getting baked in the sun if you're here in the summer. Switchbacks everywhere. There's a switchback pen downstairs in the mining building. There's a switchback pen at the top. You're going to be in this line for quite some time.
And it's not a moving queue because the capacity is so bad, so you're just standing.
They're stacking trains here. They're not rolling trains. Rolling trains meaning like one train comes into the station, the next one rolls right in. It's not happening.
Which you should not be stacking for a ride this long with only 2 trains. It's abysmal.
It's the one
everyone out there just keep applying the pressure. Let's get them to fix this for everyone. Like they could see thousands and thousands of more riders a year. That also could be a theory, is that if they're not loading as many guests and they're dispatching trains at the rate that they're dispatching them, they don't have to upkeep the trains as often.
Oh, because they're not sending as many trains out per day.
It also means that the track will be easier to maintain, or it'll take longer for it to reach a point where they would have to retrack again.
I could see that. It's a smaller theme park. So.
A great example, although not a wooden coaster, was the Incredible Hulk at Islands of Adventure.
Yeah.
They retracked that whole thing, I believe, in 2016. And that was because A, the ride was so popular because they didn't want to change it. And B, it was experiencing so many riders that when they originally built it, they didn't really take that into account. Because the manufacturer was so used to building coasters for non-universal parks that weren't open year round.
Gotcha.
So that's a possibility with GhostRider, is that hey, look, yeah, everyone's waiting super long, but if we just keep running 2 trains and it only makes X amount of cycles a day, this ride will last longer.
450 riders per hour. You're going to be waiting some time here. It's tough operations. And look, this is no disrespect to the Knott's Berry Farm staff. I think they're working quite hard. In fact, I've always seen them working quite hard and fast there. It's not their fault. This is just the systems that they're working with.
I'm assuming that from a ride operator standpoint, it's just a losing battle.
It is.
And once again, you're always at the mercy of that one rider who decides to chicken out or something while they're in the train, or, I can't have my 30 cell phones out in the open.
I can't drink my berry punch on GhostRider? Wait, what do you mean I can't bring this on?
You always have that awkward moment where they have to get out and go put it, the thing in the cubby, which obviously should not have been taken onto the ride.
No, you hate to see it. The only actual nitpick I have, I suppose, on the ride itself is that first drop doesn't have that much airtime unless you're in the back row. It looks great. That's actually where the photo is, right after the first drop. But compared to the other drops in the ride, it's kind of a weaker element.
It's not the steepest angle of descent, actually.
It's 50 degrees. And when I say not as good, this drop is still good. It's just not as good. Because the drop going into an immediate left turn still fucking rules.
As a coaster head, I don't look at the first drop now in such a high regard as I did when I was a kid, because that was the scary element as a kid.
You have the lift hill moment. You have the anticipation.
But I will say, I rode with my sister, and all she could say is when she hit that brake run was, I just wasn't ready for that first drop. So that's when I know it still packs a punch for people that aren't used to it, that haven't experienced GhostRider.
Yeah. It's scary. It's a mental thing, too. With all that said, do you have any other bads you want to add? Or
not really. I mean, you can nitpick that it doesn't have a prominent storyline in the queue or anything like that. But
though they do try. That's what I was saying. They make an effort in this ride to make it on theme, which I appreciate.
Yeah, no, aesthetically, it's terrific. This will serve as a great litmus test for our world-class test, to see if a coaster with perhaps not the same level of theming as, say, a Disney or Universal park can still get a world-class pass. But we'll get to that later.
That's right. Well, we'll get to it right now, because we're actually going to go right into our world-class test.
We're already there. Yeah. I was having so fun nerding out about this roller coaster.
I'm sure you were.
Oh my God.
In fact, you might want to change your pants. Here's the rules for our world-class test. We've devised a set of 10 questions to determine if any particular attraction is a world-class attraction. And to achieve a world-class pass, an attraction has to pass over 70% of the tests. If it gets 60% or more, then it becomes debatable if it's a world-class pass. Anything lower than 60% is a fail. The first test number 1, the average tourist test. Will the average tourist have a hard time getting on this ride? Is it a long wait? Is it a complicated queue system?
Always a hard time getting on this ride.
It's tough.
However,
it's tough.
I will say what is going for it is the fact that it's the first thing you see when walking through that front gate. You can't miss it. Goes out on, like you said, Grand Avenue. Is it Grand Avenue?
Beach Boulevard.
Beach Boulevard. It might hug Grand Avenue as well.
It might hug Grand Avenue as a
runs
parallel.
Parallel before it loops back. It's the first thing everyone sees. So if you know nothing about Knott's and you're just going and just getting your day ticket there at the front window, I don't know who the hell does that anymore. But if you do, you're not missing GhostRider. And that's, why the line immediately gets so long. It's just the first ride everyone runs to.
But you're going to have a hard time getting on this.
But you're going to have a very hard time. You're going to have the hardest time getting on this. It's going to be harder to get on than any other attraction at Knott's Berry Farm. It's not even close.
I think by that virtue, we have to fail. We have to fail it right there.
We can fail it. You could express pass your way around it.
That would fall
it is right at the front of the park.
System.
Damn it.
I think it's going to have to be a fail. It's going to be at least 2 hours no matter what, I think.
And you know what? In the name of pressuring Knott's or Cedar Fair or the powers that be or the coaster gods to maybe get this thing some better capacity, maybe a locker system or just something to get more than 450 riders on this, I'm going to go no pass.
If they added that mid-course break section back, they could probably get 3 trains on this bad boy. That would up the capacity, but it would make it a far less ride.
Well, you got to understand that the mid-course brake run would, if the operations are going smoothly enough, wouldn't have to be used. It's just.
Oh, you're right.
As a matter of fact, I think they might have reinstalled mid-course brakes up there. I think I heard something about that. They're just never used because you never have to. If the operations are going smoothly, this is designed to roll right past that mid-course brake run, even with 3 trains.
But if you do get stopped there, you're not going to get that ejector moment as
No, during the years where it got, brutally rough, they would intentionally hit the mid-course brake run and have it come to a stop just so that you wouldn't break your spinal cord on the second half of the ride.
It's going to be a fail. So 0 for 1. That's unfortunate. I'm really rooting for this ride. And you know what? I'm going to say this up top. If this ride doesn't get a world-class pass, it does in my heart, but we have a very strict rubric here, and we're going to have to play by the rules. I'm sorry. Test number 2, the Leslie Stahl test. Will you be willing to wait 60 minutes for this attraction? 1,000% yes. I'd wait 2 hours, and I'd be happy.
It's an easy pass here. 60 minutes is considered a short wait time at this point for GhostRider.
I think so.
Considering that it's all-time average is over 80 minutes.
60 minutes is a goddamn bargain. 60 minutes feels like a sale that you can't pass up.
Yeah, and on top of that, you're not going to wait more than 60 minutes for most of the Knott's attractions.
You're not.
If you do, you really went on the wrong day.
No, you really did.
I would advise, taking a sick day off work or something one time.
Perhaps.
And actually enjoying the wonders that
You're, of course, not
beholds.
suggesting that you've done that.
Oh, gosh, never.
Yeah.
Never.
I think so. 1 for 2. Number 3, the smartphone test. Does the queue of this ride have enough to keep you off your phone?
I'm on my phone.
I'm sorry, man.
It's a fail.
It's a fail. They do their best. There are moments. There's the safety video, like I mentioned. The entrance to the queue is kick-ass. Everything else in between, you're going to have a tough time. I'm just sorry. 1 for 3. Not looking good so far. The Tony Stark test. How innovative is the attraction? Does it push theme park tech forward?
I can't say that it pushes theme park tech forward.
I can make an argument for it.
I want to hear you out.
I think by virtue of looking backward, it's also pushing theme park tech forward. It's a relic of the past. Wooden roller coasters are not much of a thing anymore. However, the fact that this one is so goddamn good would hopefully encourage other parks to invest in a classic Woody roller coaster. I think by that virtue, by doing it better than anybody else, because I do think this is the greatest wooden roller coaster in the world, you can make the argument that it's pushing tech forward in the sense that it's getting other parks to make a wooden roller coaster.
And what you could also be implying is that it was somewhat of a game changer to bring a wooden coaster to Southern California, a place that did not have many wooden coasters, during a time when most amusement park chains were doing the opposite. There's quite a bit of innovation.
They quite literally had to change the track and the foundation, like you were saying, to make it withstand all these forces. That's tech.
Yeah, it's true. And they had to, just a wooden coaster in Southern California in general has a different protocol to abide by for earthquakes.
I think this is a pass. I think we can pass it.
Let's do it.
I'm passing it. I'm passing it. That's 2 for 4. The Hollywood test. This is test number 5. Let's keep it going. Can this attraction be adapted for the silver screen? Does it have a comprehensible story? It has that backstory about that funny little miner that got lost.
Hey, you know what? You could make like a horror western sort of film. Yeah. I feel like by that storyline.
GhostRider, you could. I mean, technically there was a film named GhostRider starring Nicolas Cage. That's not the one.
That's
not
Marvel
based on
film?
this ride. Not based on this ride.
Not quite.
I would be interested if this ride got the Disney treatment. For example, Jungle Cruise has a story, but it's not super, thick on the lore. I also heard that they're maybe making a movie off of Matterhorn. You have a Western set in this classic ghost town, this mining town, and a rider gets lost and then becomes a ghost.
It is this post-Civil War soldier that was fighting for the Union that moves out west.
He got the fever, the gold fever.
Oh yeah, you could have these like personal battles. He has PTSD.
I think this would be a shoehorn job if we passed this one. I'm going to be honest. I did not know there was a story until I looked it up. I think that's pretty tough.
But you said you would like to see this.
I'd like to see it. Do I think it would be an easy sell? First, you'd have to explain to people that there is a story, let alone one that you could adapt. I think by that virtue alone, it has to be a fail.
Okay, on the basis of...
You're trying so hard.
There's never been... No. Quite the contrary. There's never been a time I've gotten off GhostRider or experienced GhostRider and been like, ooh, like, let me imagine this GhostRider film. So in that regard, I think it's not a pass.
Yeah, there's 2 questions in this test. Can this attraction be adapted for the silver screen? Maybe. But the second question, does it have a comprehensible story? Absolutely not.
They sure as hell don't present it.
So it's got to be a fail. That's now 2 for 5. It's not looking great, but maybe we could have a valiant comeback here. Test number 6, the Simpson test. How likely is this to be replaced with something new? I think incredibly unlikely.
They've had their opportunities and they've held their ground.
And Simpson's test, by the way, we always have to explain this. That replaced Back to the Future, one of the worst things to ever happen to a theme park. No, this ride is not going to be replaced. They would be shooting themselves in the foot in a major way. Anytime this ride has any kind of refurbishment.
I'm going to play minor devil's advocate here.
I'd love to hear it.
I don't think GhostRider, as in the name and the overall theme, would ever change. It's just, it's perfectly engraved in Ghost Town.
Yeah.
Ghost Town is the crown jewel of Knott's Berry Farm. I think there will always be a GhostRider as long as there is a Ghost Town, as long as there is a Knott's Berry Farm.
Yeah.
However, there could come a day where they decide that they cannot stick with the wooden track. There might come a day after experiencing enough earthquakes, after realizing the maintenance cost is too high. At a certain point, they might realize that they just have too many guests in the park and this coaster just doesn't cycle enough guests. There is a chance, because they had this chance in 2015, there could come that time where they have to make that decision once again. Do we retrack with wood or do we retrack with steel? Say the Iron Horse treatment provided by Rocky Mountain Construction.
I don't see it.
There is a chance to do that. However, I still think no matter what, you're still getting GhostRider. So it's a pass.
We're at 3 for 6, 50% so far. Oh shit, I just realized we've never thrown to a sponsor at all.
I was wondering about that. If we ever had to if it's just going to be we just cut it in or...
Moving on, test number 7, the signature moment test. Can this ride hold its own without it? Is it a one-trick pony? I guess the signature moment for this would be, by most people's standards, the first drop.
And then you're basically hit with signature moment after signature moment.
This ride repeatedly punches you in the nuts, and it's in a good way.
You're getting hit with those laterals, then you're getting hit with airtime hills, then unbanked turns. That's the same thing as laterals, but you get my... you got that awesome floater airtime hill after the first drop.
And then you also have the ejector.
And then you're just pounded through that structure.
Yeah.
where you just kind of give up on what's going on.
Yeah, you just kind of
and then
relinquish yourself to the ride. You just let yourself go.
And then
the helix.
You're hit with that helix as the finale. It does not let up.
A hell helix, if you will.
You're just out of breath every time you hit that brake run because you're hit with signature moment after signature moment. It's an easy pass.
That's an easy pass for me too. That's 4 out of 7, by the way.
Oh shit, we might be entering debate land.
If it nails the rest of these tests, it's world class. All right. This is the premature detraculation test. This is test number 8. Does this ride finish too soon? 1000% no. This is a 2 minute and 40-second roller coaster.
And what that means is from the top of the lift hill to the final brake run, that's an estimated 90 seconds of coaster bliss, of nonstop.
Because seconds on a roller coaster are like dog years for like a year.
Exactly.
It feels like forever. This is like the Irishman of a roller coaster, except it holds pacing a little bit better.
Yeah, so for example, Hang Time, which is in the same park, the new Gerschlauer dive coaster, that's about 45 to 50 seconds tops of prime ride time. GhostRider is about double what most coasters are for like prime ride time.
It's insane. It's an easy pass.
Easy pass. It's 90 seconds of incredible pace. It's a rapid 90 seconds.
I think it's the most well-paced ride I've ever been on.
And like you said, it's over 4,500 feet of track length. You're
wild.
Putting in the hours in line, but you're not cheated in regards to length of the experience.
No. So 2 passes here. That's world class. Here we go. Test number 9, the exit hall test. Do you see people be physically excited getting off this ride? Do you have that bounce when you're walking off?
Oh, baby, I got that bounce.
I got the bounce.
I got that bounce.
I've seen people clap when this ride ends. I unprompted. You know, in Universal Studios Hollywood, when you get off the Mummy and they're like, yay, and they all clap like that. That does not happen on this ride. The workers at Knott's are too busy trying to get this thing loaded. In the meantime, we're all applauding like we're at Cannes.
Look, I've been on this numerous times. I still get bounce.
Me too.
Every single time without fail, I get bounce.
It's incredible.
So
this might be the greatest pass we've ever given on this show in terms of the exit hall test. Yeah.
I mean, we have a small sample size so far, but yeah, this is the most consistent bounce you're going to get.
Well, especially for a coaster head like yourself.
Oh, yeah.
You're bouncing off the walls. Easy pass. We're in debate land now, so we got to 6. We're where we want to be.
6? Okay.
Now, let's see if we make it official. The last test number 10. Let's go for 7 right here. And you know what? I will say, I want to applaud you and I right now, which I know this podcast is basically you and I just jerking each other off, but let's jerk it a little bit more. I want to applaud our level of restraint. We could have passed it on a couple other tests, like perhaps the average tourist test. We could have given it a light pass.
I think you caught me moving to the dark side on a couple of those.
We could have given it light passes to try and shoehorn it in, and we didn't. Maybe you can make an argument that we did that for the Tony Stark test, but I actually do believe whatever happens on this last test, we could hold our heads high. We played a fair game. Test number 10, the fine wine test. Has it aged well? Has your opinion of the attraction appreciated or depreciated since your first experience? Or if it's a new ride, do you believe it will age well? Look, we know what the answer to this one is. Not only has it appreciated, they literally improved the ride in 2015 to 2016. So it quite literally did get better.
And many roller coasters, even after retracking, experience some shakiness.
No, your mileage will vary on roller coasters.
A few years afterward. This is what, 6-7 years almost?
We're now, 2016, so we're at about 7 years later.
Yeah, obviously there was a gap year of not being open, but still running as good as it did when it reopened in 2016.
Feels exactly the same.
So it really seems like they're putting the dedication in because they appreciate the history of this ride. The more I get to know this ride, the more I appreciate the history of this ride. And the more roller coasters I go on in general, the more I appreciate this ride.
Oh no, it's beautiful. The commitment to maintenance and upkeep of this ride is pretty top level, world class, if you will.
And as a matter of fact, because there's, coaster enthusiasts around the world
that will make pilgrimages out to this ride.
That will come to Knott's Berry Farm specifically for this ride. So I take a lot of pride in knowing that we have a banger of a coaster here at one of my home parks.
This is a pass. It's a world-class ride with a score of 7 out of 10. Let's just...
Amusement park coaster getting a world-class pass, that's very encouraging.
It's very encouraging.
And it honestly kind of opens the door, I think, to maybe do some more coasters in the future and see if they could live up to the level that GhostRider is. That's a very high bar.
No, incredibly high bar, and rightfully so. Look, it's one of my favorite roller coasters of all time. It might be my favorite roller coaster of all time. That wraps up this episode of For Your Amusement. Make sure you follow us on the socials at FYA Pod on Twitter, Instagram, Threads. You can follow me at Ryan S. Bergara on Twitter, at Ryan Bergara on Instagram, and at Byron A. Marin on Twitter and Instagram. We loved having you guys here. Hopefully we see you guys on the next episode when we discuss something equally cool and awesome. But yeah, that does it for GhostRider. Toodaloo.